Today's target. I can measure the length of objects to the nearest 1/2 inch using a ruler. When we measure objects, we need to line it up with the 0 on a ruler, which is usually the edge. And the length of an object is talking about how tall or long an object is. When I say the 1/2 inch mark, that is the line that's going to be in the middle of each of our whole numbers on a ruler. And a ruler is the tool that we use to measure the length of an object, and it's going to have whole numbers and fractions written on it. So what is a fraction? Have you ever been given a piece of a cookie before? Or maybe you've eaten a half of a cookie? A fraction is when you have something that is only a piece of a whole object. So like in my picture above, I only have half of a cookie. I don't have the whole thing. So I only have a fraction of the cookie. We're going to have objects today that don't quite line up with whole numbers. And we're going to be using fractions to measure their length. Let's compare and contrast these 3 rulers below. What are some things they have in common? Well, they all are the same length. They line up edge to edge, and they all have the numbers 1 through 12. However, they do have some differences. You may have noticed that the first ruler doesn't have any tick marks between each of my whole numbers, but the 2 rulers below have tick marks in between the whole numbers. And my whole numbers are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are my whole numbers. I want us to zoom in and look at the 2 rulers that we're going to use the most today. In my first ruler, again, I don't have any tick marks. But in my second ruler, I have 1 tick mark in between each of my whole numbers. Going back to our target, that's going to be my 1/2 inch mark. I want us to learn how we are getting to that fraction. Why is it 1/2? Let's look at that first ruler. From the edge of my ruler to the whole number 1, I just have 1 space. I have 1 whole space. It hasn't been broken up into smaller pieces. In my second ruler, I have 2 spaces between the edge of my ruler and the whole number 1. So if you look at the fraction 1/2, notice how the number on the bottom has a 2 in it. That's because I have 2 spaces between the 0 or the edge of my ruler and 1. And we're going to continue this fraction all throughout my ruler. However, after each whole number, I have to include that number with the fraction. So let's look at this as an example. So my first tick mark before I get to the whole number 1 would just be 1/2. After I get to the whole number 1, the tick mark that comes after it would be 1.5. 2 inches, 2.5. 3 inches, 3.5. 4 inches, 4.5, and then we have 5 inches. And you can abbreviate the word inch with these 2 marks next to your measurement. So let's practice measuring objects with these 3 rulers. I want to measure the length of this Hot Wheels car. I have lined up the front edge of this Hot Wheels car with the edge, which is my 0, and I'm going to draw a line to see where the back end of my Hot Wheels car meets the ruler. So again, the edge of my ruler is where 0 would be. I'm drawing my line. It helps me see which whole number or which 1/2 inch mark my object lines up with. And I see that it lines up perfectly with the whole number 2. So the length of my Hot Wheels car would be 2 inches. Even if I use this next ruler down below, again, it's lined up with 0. I can draw that line. It's still going to line up with the whole number 2. Same thing with my third ruler. Even though I'm adding more tick marks on each of these rulers as I go, It's still lining up with the whole number 2, so my answer is going to be 2 inches every single time, no matter what ruler I'm using. Let's measure this candle. I've lined it up with the edge of my ruler at 0, and I'm going to draw a line to see where the end of my candle meets the ruler. What whole number does this candle match up with? If you said 3 inches, you are correct. And make sure you're including that measurement, that unit of measurement at the end of your answer. So you need to say inches after your number. Again, no matter what ruler I use, it's going to line up with that whole number 3. So my answer would be 3 inches every single time, no matter how many tick marks are in between my whole numbers. Now, I want to measure a nail using this ruler below. You may have noticed earlier that all of my objects were lined up straight across. This is important because if you line up an object and it's not straight in line with your ruler, it's going to look to be a different length than it actually is. So if I have my nail placed in this position next to my ruler, it looks like it's about halfway between 3 and 4. But if I turn it to where it's lined up straight with my ruler, now it looks longer. My nail didn't grow, but because it's lined up straight, now I can get a true measurement of how long this nail is. So I have my nail lined up with 0. I'm going to draw a line. What whole number is my nail closest to according to this ruler? 4 inches. Good. And again, no matter what ruler I use, my answer is still going to be 4 inches. Now, let's measure the width of Bob. He doesn't look very happy to be being measured. I notice that I have him lined up to 0. I'm going to draw a line to see where the edge of him lines up with this ruler. And I notice that the width of Bob is exactly in the middle of 2 and 3. So if I said 2 inches, that wouldn't be true. And 3 inches would also not be the true width of Bob. So what would be exactly in the middle of 2 and 3? 2.5 inches. And it may be helpful to use this second ruler. But again, no matter what ruler you use, as long as you know that middle tick mark is your 1/2 inch mark, you can get your measurement of your objects. So here is Bob lined up with that 1/2 inch mark on this ruler, 2.5 inches. And same thing with this ruler. Even though there's more tick marks, he's still lined up with that line right in the middle of 2 and 3. So Bob is 2.5 inches wide. What about Simba? I want to measure how wide Simba is. I have him lined up with the 0. I'm going to draw my line to see where the width of him ends according to my ruler. He's in between 5 and 6. So how wide do you think Simba will be? He's not quite 5 and he's not quite 6. What would be in the middle of 5 and 6? Good, 5.5 inches. And if you notice, the whole number that you just passed is included in your answer. So if you said 6.5, that wouldn't be true because he hasn't even reached the 6 yet. So make sure you're including the whole number that you just passed. And again, no matter what ruler you use, as long as you know that middle tick mark in between each of your whole numbers is that 1/2 inch mark, you will know that Simba is 5.5 inches wide. I want you to go through the next few examples and answer them on your own. How wide are the following objects?